A cattle-baron widower posted for a cook, but a single mother walked into his life instead. Cyrus Duval stood on the edge of his porch, looking out across the wide plains of the colony planet Valera. The wind, dry and tinged with the metallic scent of the distant mountains, ruffled his dark hair. The ranch stretched out before him like a living organism, herds of bioengineered cattle grazing in the sunlight, automated waterers glinting like small mirrors, and drones hovering lazily overhead, monitoring the herds. Everything was in place, everything was under control. Yet the quiet gnawed at him. Since his wife's passing 2 years ago, the ranch had been impeccably run, but lonely. He had thought he wanted no one else. He had thought he could manage on his own. But now, staring at the advertisement he had posted, he wondered if he had misjudged his own needs. He had posted a simple ad for a cook, not a chef, not someone to bring flair to the table. Just someone to keep the meals steady, the kitchen functional, and perhaps to make life a little less empty. The posting had gone out across the colony networks, on the chance that someone capable might find their way to Valera. Cyrus ran a hand over his stubbled jaw and let out a long sigh. He didn't know what he expected. Someone experienced, perhaps, someone dependable. A cook, that's all. And yet, he had learned in the past that expectations rarely matched reality, especially in a place like Valera, where the land could be as harsh as it was beautiful. The sound of hooves striking the dirt behind him pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to see a small transport hovering toward the main gates. Dust swirled around it as it landed with a soft thud. Cyrus raised a hand to shield his eyes and frowned. Visitors were rare, and most arrived only by prior arrangement. The hatch opened, and out stepped a woman holding a small, tired-looking child by the hand. The woman's brown hair was tied back in a practical braid, her boots dusty, her clothes simple but durable. She carried no fancy equipment, no small luggage other than a worn satchel. Yet her eyes, bright and sharp, swept the ranch with something that looked like both curiosity and determination. Cyrus narrowed his eyes. This did not look like the cook he had expected. "Hello," he called out, his voice carrying over the wind. "Can I help you?" The woman straightened, a polite but confident smile forming. "I hope so," she said. "I'm Mara Hayes. I saw your posting for a cook." She glanced down at the small girl holding her hand. "And this is Lena. I think we might be able to help." Cyrus blinked, studying her. She was not what he had imagined, not someone who had likely mastered the subtle art of seasoning or sauce. But there was something about her that gave him pause. She seemed practical, resourceful, alert. Her gaze held a quiet strength. "I wasn't expecting anyone quite like you," he admitted cautiously. "I mean, you're welcome, of course, but tell me, do you cook professionally?" Mara laughed softly, a sound that seemed to fit the open plains around them. "Not professionally, but I know my way around a kitchen. And I can manage other things, too, feeding, cleaning, organizing, even handling animals if needed. I'm willing to learn anything else." Cyrus hesitated. He could see the truth in her eyes, the kind of person who could adapt and survive in a place like Valera. Perhaps this was not a kitchen job she wanted. Perhaps it was life itself. He gestured for her to follow him inside the main house. Lena stayed close, holding her mother's hand, peering curiously at the robotic assistants that floated silently, cleaning and organizing, perfectly efficient. The house was large, functional, and modern. Metallic panels reflected the light streaming in from the wide windows. Cyrus led them to the kitchen where he laid out the supplies. "This is what we have," he said. "The work is simple, but it needs to be done every day. Meals, cleaning, keeping things running smoothly. You'll have help from the drones, of course, but the human touch is necessary." Mara nodded. "I understand. I'm used to handling a lot with very little help." She set down her satchel and crouched to help Lena take off her boots. "Right, Lena, we can do this together." The little girl nodded, wide-eyed and curious. Cyrus felt a strange tug in his chest at the sight. It had been years since he had seen children on his property, except when visiting neighbors, and even then it was rare. There was something refreshing about the energy Lena brought with her. As they settled in, a sudden alarm echoed through the ranch, a soft chime at first, then the more insistent buzz of mechanical failure. One of the automated feeders in the north pasture had stopped functioning, and the cattle there were restless. Cyrus frowned and moved toward the control panel. "Drone system malfunction," he muttered. He tapped on the display, bringing up diagnostics, but something seemed off. The feeder wasn't responding. He glanced at Mara. Stay here, he said, then grabbed a maintenance kit. Myra's brow furrowed. Do you want me to? No, it's fine. I can handle it, he replied, but then paused. The way she was watching the system, her head tilted slightly, reminded him of, well, he wasn't sure. Maybe it was her curiosity, maybe it was the way her mind seemed to work. Actually, can you come with me? Might need a second pair of hands. She followed, holding Lena's hand carefully as they moved across the dust-swept yard. Cyrus explained the problem as they walked. The feeder had jammed, and if not cleared quickly, several calves could go hungry. Mara knelt beside the feeder, examining it with quiet determination. Looks like a sensor jam, she said. I think I can clear it manually while you reset the drone. Cyrus watched as she worked, impressed by the ease with which she handled the delicate mechanism. Her hands were steady, her mind clear. Within minutes, she had cleared the jam, and the feeder began to hum and whir again, delivering feed to the waiting cattle. Cyrus felt a small surge of respect. He had expected someone who could cook. Instead, he had found someone who could solve problems in a way he had not anticipated. Not bad, he said, a hint of a smile breaking through his usually stoic expression. You've got a knack for this, Mara shrugged modestly. I just do what needs to be done. As they walked back to the house, Lena skipping beside them, Cyrus couldn't help but notice the quiet connection forming between mother and daughter, between Myra and the ranch. It was subtle, almost invisible, but undeniable. That evening, the three of them sat down for a simple meal Mara had prepared using the supplies on hand. Nothing fancy, but nourishing and warm. Cyrus watched Mara interact with Lena, the easy, patient way she guided her daughter, and he felt a pang of something he had long thought buried, hope. You'll do fine here, he found himself saying. I wasn't sure at first, but you might just be what this place needs. Mara smiled, and for the first time in weeks, Cyrus felt that he wasn't alone in his wide, lonely world. The ranch stretched on around them, quiet now, but alive with the subtle rhythms of life, both human and mechanical. And somewhere in that vastness, he realized, a new chapter had begun, not just for him, but for Mara and Lena as well. Outside, the wind carried the scent of grass and dust and something else he couldn't name. Change, maybe, possibility. Cyrus watched as a pair of drones swept across the pasture, and he felt a strange sense of calm. Life on Valera was unpredictable, challenging, and sometimes harsh. But maybe, with Mara here, it would also be a little warmer, a little brighter. The sun rose slowly over the plains of Valera, casting a warm, golden light across the ranch. Cyrus Duval stepped onto the porch with a mug of steaming coffee in his hands. The air was crisp, the way it always felt just before the day fully awakened. He could hear the gentle lowing of the cattle and the faint whir of drones starting their daily rounds. He took a deep breath, savoring the quiet. Inside the house, Mara was already moving, preparing breakfast. Lena sat at the table, carefully arranging her breakfast plate, humming a little tune she had made up. Mara glanced up as Cyrus entered. Good morning, she said. Her voice carried the calm confidence that had already impressed him the day before. Morning, he replied. He watched her work for a moment, noting how she managed the kitchen with a mix of efficiency and care. It wasn't the precision of a professional chef, but it had something else, heart, instinct, and organization. She moved with purpose, and everything she touched seemed to find its place. Lena bounded over to him, holding out a small plate. Daddy, she said, and for a moment Cyrus nearly forgot that she wasn't his own child. I made pancakes, Cyrus smiled, taking the plate gently. The pancakes were uneven and a little lopsided, but golden, brown, and warm. He bit into one and found it surprisingly good. Mara watched quietly, a small smile tugging at her lips. Not bad, Cyrus said. Better than some of the stores in the colony. Lena beamed. Mara ruffled her daughter's hair affectionately. She's learning, Mara said softly. And so am I. Every day here is something new. After breakfast, Cyrus led Mara outside to show her more of the ranch. The vastness of the land was both beautiful and intimidating. Herds of genetically enhanced cattle grazed peacefully, their movements watched over by drones that hovered like silent sentinels. Automated feeders dotted the fields, and water reservoirs reflected the sunlight like small lakes. This is your domain, Cyrus said, spreading his arms. Everything out here is part of the ranch, and it all needs care. The drones and feeders help, but humans are still the heart of it. I thought a cook was enough, but I see now maybe we need more than that. Myra nodded, glancing around. It's a big place. It looks peaceful, but I can tell it takes a lot of work. It does, Cyrus admitted. Some days it's just routine. Other days it's, well, unpredictable. You need to be ready for anything, and I mean anything. Mara's gaze hardened slightly, the kind of expression that told Cyrus she understood exactly what he meant. I've handled unpredictable, she said. I can manage whatever comes. Cyrus found himself impressed again. He wasn't sure what he expected when he hired her, but this was far beyond simple cooking skills. Mara had an instinct for problem-solving, a calm decisiveness he had rarely seen. Their tour of the ranch took them past the herds, past the automated feeding stations, and toward a small paddock where some calves were being trained for long-distance grazing. Mara watched intently, asking questions about how the drones were programmed, how the feeding cycles worked, and how the cattle responded to changes in routine. You really pay attention, Cyrus said. Most people would just walk by and nod. I like to understand things, Mara replied, especially when I'm responsible for them, and when Lena is with me, I want to make sure everything is safe. Cyrus glanced down at Lena, who was already running ahead to pet a young calf. The girl moved confidently, yet carefully, and Cyrus felt a small smile tug at his lips. She fit in here just as much as her mother did. The day continued with Mara learning the daily routines. She helped feed the livestock manually in areas where the drones couldn't reach, repaired minor malfunctions in the feeders, and even assisted the ranch hands with the water distribution system. Cyrus observed quietly, noting how her presence seemed to smooth the flow of activity. The ranch, which had been orderly, now felt alive with a subtle rhythm, guided by her steady hand. By midday, the sun was high, and the air shimmered over the plains. Cyrus called a break, and they all sat under a shaded structure near the main barn. Lena played nearby, her laughter ringing out across the fields. You're really good with her, Cyrus said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Mara looked over at her daughter and smiled. She's the best part of my life. Everything I do is for her, but she's also taught me a lot. Patience, creativity, courage. Kids have a way of reminding you what's important. Cyrus nodded slowly. I lost my wife 2 years ago. Life has been quiet since then, too quiet sometimes. I thought I wanted no one else here, but seeing you two, I can feel how much I've missed having a family around. Mara didn't respond immediately. She understood the unspoken truth in his words, the loneliness of managing such a vast ranch, the isolation that came with responsibility. You're not alone anymore, she said softly. If you want, you don't have to be. Their conversation was interrupted by the buzz of a drone signaling an incoming delivery. Cyrus checked the display and saw a supply pod approaching, carrying feed and maintenance tools. Mara followed him as he monitored the landing, and when the pod touched down, she helped guide the crates to the storage area. It was during these moments, the small interactions and the shared labor, that Cyrus began to see Mara in a new light. She wasn't just a helper, she was part of the ranch's life. She was adapting, learning, and contributing in ways he hadn't expected, and she did it with an ease and warmth that made him realize just how lonely he had been. As the afternoon stretched on, Mara and Cyrus walked the perimeter of the ranch together. The land was breathtaking, the hills rolling into valleys, streams sparkling under the sun, and distant mountains forming a protective ring around their home. They spoke of simple things, the weather, the crops, the patterns of the cattle. But beneath the ordinary conversation, a quiet bond was forming. When they returned to the house, Mara suggested preparing dinner together. Cyrus hesitated at first. He had always handled his meals alone, but she insisted, saying it would be fun and that Lena could help too. The kitchen, once a place of routine, became lively with the smells of cooking, the sound of laughter, and the clatter of pots. By the time the meal was ready, Cyrus felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Sitting together, eating and talking, the ranch didn't feel so empty anymore. Mara had brought more than skill, she had brought life. Later, as Mara cleaned up and Lena prepared for bed, Cyrus lingered in the doorway. He watched them, feeling a strange mixture of admiration and something softer, something that might grow into trust or even friendship. Cyrus, Mara said without turning, thank you. For letting us stay, for giving us a chance. He nodded, unsure of how to put into words the feeling welling inside him. You've done more than I expected, he said. You've made this place better for everyone. That night, as he stood on the porch again, looking out at the stars scattered across Valera's sky, Cyrus realized that life on the ranch had changed in just one day. It wasn't just Mara who had come into his life. It was hope, connection, and the promise of something more. The wide plains, the cattle, the drones, and the quiet of the night all seemed different. Alive, in a way that only humans could make alive. And he knew, without doubt, that tomorrow and the days after would be different too. Mara and Lena had arrived, and with them came a new rhythm, a new energy. The ranch was no longer just a place of work. It was a home in the making. He smiled to himself, finally allowing the thought to settle fully. Life on Valera, with Mara and Lena here, might just be exactly what he needed. The morning sun had barely risen when the ranch came alive with activity. Cyrus Duval walked along the edge of the main pasture, watching the cattle move with their usual grace. The soft hum of drones filled the air, and the distant mountains shimmered with the early light. He felt a sense of calm, a rare moment of peace that had been missing for far too long. Myra was already outside, supervising Lena as she helped water the smaller pens. The little girl carried a bucket carefully, her small hands gripping it tightly as she followed her mother's instructions. Mara's eyes were sharp, scanning the grounds, noting any potential trouble before it could happen. Cyrus admired her from a distance. She had a natural rhythm and ability to see problems before they became serious. "You've got her trained well," he said, approaching them. "She's learning fast." Mara smiled, wiping a bit of sweat from her forehead. "She learns from watching. And I make sure she does the important things first. Safety, responsibility, helping others." Cyrus nodded. "That's good. Life out here can be unpredictable. The land, the weather, even the cattle, things can change in an instant. You've got to be ready for it." Mara's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. "I understand. I can handle it." Cyrus felt a quiet respect for her determination. She wasn't just adapting to life on the ranch, she was thriving in it, and he realized he had underestimated her. By late morning, the first real challenge appeared, not from machinery, not from the herd, but from the weather. Dark clouds rolled over the distant mountains, and a sudden wind swept across the plains, stronger than anything they had experienced in recent days. Cyrus frowned and checked his instruments. A storm was coming, and fast. "Storm's coming," he said, his voice carrying over the wind. "We need to secure everything." Mara quickly assessed the situation, her mind working in practical terms. "I'll handle the livestock in the smaller pens. Lena can help with the water troughs. You take the drones and check the automated feeders, make sure nothing gets damaged." Cyrus felt a surge of relief. She didn't panic, didn't hesitate. She simply organized the work. "Right," he said. "Let's move." The storm hit faster than expected. Dust and leaves whipped through the air, and the distant rumble of thunder shook the ground. Mara moved through the pens with Lena by her side, guiding the smaller cattle into sheltered areas. Her voice was calm and steady, giving instructions without shouting, her confidence a balm against the rising panic of the storm. Cyrus moved among the drones and feeders, resetting them and ensuring the systems were functioning correctly. The wind made it difficult to hear, but he could see Mara's small figure moving efficiently through the chaos. She was remarkable. By midday, the storm had reached its peak. Rain mixed with dust, creating a fine, abrasive mist that coated everything. The larger cattle huddled together for protection, and the drones worked harder than ever to maintain control of the herd. Mara's quick thinking had saved the smaller pens from flooding, and Cyrus could see the sense of accomplishment on her face despite the harsh conditions. When the storm began to ease, Cyrus and Mara walked together across the drenched plains, checking the damage. The ranch had fared better than he expected. A few branches had fallen, some equipment had been knocked over, but nothing was broken beyond repair. "You handled that well," Cyrus said. "Better than I would have expected from someone who just arrived." Myra shrugged, though her eyes held a glint of pride. "I've had to handle storms before, not exactly like this, but it's the same principle. Stay calm, take action, protect those who can't protect themselves." Cyrus nodded, impressed. Her calm courage, her ability to think clearly under pressure, reminded him of his wife in some ways. But Mara had her own style, her own energy, and he could see that she was exactly the right person for this ranch. That evening, as the sun set and the sky cleared to reveal a tapestry of stars, Cyrus found himself sharing a quiet moment with Mara and Lena. They sat on the porch, sipping warm drinks and watching the cattle graze peacefully. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the damp air and the faint scent of wet earth. "You're good with the land," Cyrus said after a while, breaking the comfortable silence. Not just the animals, but the ranch itself. You see what needs to be done before it becomes a problem. Mara smiled a little shyly. I try. I've learned that the more you pay attention, the less surprises catch you off guard. Lena leaned against her mother, yawning. I like it here, Mama, she said. I want to stay. Mara nodded, brushing her daughter's hair gently. Me too, sweetie. We're safe here and we have a home. Cyrus watched them, feeling a warmth in his chest. The ranch had been quiet for so long, but now it felt alive in a way he hadn't realized he had missed. Mara and Lena had brought something he hadn't even known he was missing: hope, energy, and the feeling that life could be more than routine and work. The next few days were a blend of learning, work, and small victories. Mara adapted quickly to the routines of the ranch, assisting with the drones, the feeders, and the cattle. She learned how to anticipate the herd's behavior, how to adjust the feeding schedules, and how to keep the smaller animals safe. Cyrus watched her, amazed at how quickly she became an essential part of the ranch's life. She wasn't just following instructions. She was thinking ahead, planning and improving the way things worked. The drones and automated systems were useful, but Mara's human touch, the ability to see, understand, and react, was irreplaceable. One afternoon, while they were repairing a minor glitch in the water system, a communications signal came in from the colony network. Cyrus listened as a voice on the other end explained that a neighboring ranch had been struggling with equipment failures and asked if he could lend advice. Mara looked at him, curiosity bright in her eyes. "Do you want me to help?" she asked. Cyrus considered it for a moment. Mara had shown herself capable time and again. "Yes," he said finally. "I think you should. It'll be good experience and they could use your help." The two of them worked together to troubleshoot the problem remotely. Mara's sharp mind and practical thinking made the process smooth and efficient. By the end of the day, the neighboring ranch had a solution, and Cyrus felt a quiet pride in her abilities. She was not just surviving on Valera, she was thriving. That night, the three of them gathered around a small fire outside the house. The stars shone brightly, untouched by city lights, and the gentle sound of the wind through the plains added a peaceful rhythm to the evening. Mara shared stories of her life on her home planet, of the struggles she had faced as a single mother, and of the hopes she had for Lena's future. Cyrus listened, fascinated by her resilience. She had faced difficulties he could barely imagine, yet she moved forward with determination and grace. There was a strength in her that was quietly inspiring. "You've been through a lot," he said softly after a long pause, "and yet here you are. Handling everything, caring for your daughter, keeping this ranch running. I'm impressed." Mara smiled, a little embarrassed. "Thank you. I've learned that life doesn't wait for you to be ready. You either adapt or you fall behind, and I don't plan to fall behind." Cyrus nodded, feeling a deep respect for her courage. He thought about the future, the ranch, Mara, Lena, and realized that things were changing in ways he hadn't expected. Life was no longer just routine and solitude. It was full of possibilities, challenges, and connections he hadn't allowed himself to imagine. The following days brought more work, more learning, and more opportunities for Mara to shine. She became essential not only to the daily operations, but also to the emotional rhythm of the ranch. Her presence brought warmth, her energy brought life, and her courage brought confidence to everyone around her. Cyrus began to notice subtle changes in himself as well. He was more patient, more open to new ideas, and more willing to rely on others. Mara's example inspired him, and he found himself looking forward to each day, eager to see what they would accomplish together. One afternoon, while checking the perimeter of the ranch, Mara and Cyrus encountered a small group of young calves that had wandered close to the edge of the property. Mara quickly assessed the situation, using her knowledge of animal behavior to guide the calves back to safety. Cyrus watched, amazed at her instinctive understanding and calm decisiveness. "You've got away with them," he said. "Not just the livestock, but all of it, the ranch, the land, the people." Mara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I just try to do what's right. And I've learned to trust my instincts." Cyrus felt a quiet gratitude for her presence. The ranch was no longer just a place of work. It was a place of life, learning, and connection. And Mara, with Lena at her side, had become the heart of it. As the sun set once again, painting the plains in shades of gold and purple, Cyrus realized that life on Valera had shifted. The storm had tested them, the work had bonded them, and Mara's presence had brought hope, energy, and a sense of belonging. The ranch, once orderly but lonely, was now alive with possibility. And as he watched Mara and Lena together, laughing softly as they tended to the animals, Cyrus knew that the future held something extraordinary. The morning air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of wet earth from the storm that had passed days before. Cyrus Duval walked along the edge of the main pasture, his eyes scanning the horizon. The ranch had settled back into its usual rhythm, but he could feel a quiet tension in the air. There was work to be done, and he wanted everything to be perfect. Mara Hayes was already outside, directing the ranch hands as they inspected the automated feeders and drones. Lena ran ahead, laughing, chasing after a small flock of birds that had returned to the plains. Cyrus watched them both, feeling a deep sense of calm. The ranch was alive, not just with machines and animals, but with people who cared, who thought, who acted. "Good morning," Cyrus said as he approached Mara. "Morning," she replied, not stopping her work. "We've got a few feeders that need recalibrating." The storm moved some of the sensors out of place. Cyrus nodded. "I'll handle that one over there," he said, pointing to a unit near the northern paddock. Mara glanced at it, then returned her attention to the others. "You're becoming quite the expert," he said with a small smile. "I've learned quickly," Mara replied. "I have to. This ranch isn't like anywhere I've worked before." Cyrus could see the truth in her words. Mara had adapted faster than anyone he had ever seen. She didn't just follow instructions. She understood the land, the animals, and even the machines. And more than that, she inspired confidence in those around her. By late morning, they noticed something unusual. One of the automated drones patrolling the Far East field reported a strange reading. Cyrus checked the system and frowned. The sensors were picking up movement, not from the cattle, not from wildlife, but something else. "Could it be another storm or weather disturbance?" Mara asked, walking over to examine the readout. Cyrus shook his head. "No, the weather is clear. This is something else. Could be a malfunction, but we should check it anyway." They gathered a small team of ranch hands and set out across the plains. Mara walked beside Cyrus, analyzing the readings and noting the unusual patterns. Lena trailed behind them, careful to stay within sight of the adults. As they approached the Far East field, they saw the source of the readings. A group of drones from a neighboring ranch had drifted onto their land. They weren't hostile. In fact, they seemed confused, their sensors blinking as they attempted to navigate the unfamiliar terrain. "They're lost," Mara said, kneeling to inspect one of the drones. "I can reroute them so they get back to their home ranch." Cyrus nodded. "Good, let's make sure they don't damage anything here first." Mara worked quickly, interfacing with the drone's systems using a portable control unit she had brought along. She redirected their flight paths, avoiding the livestock and the fences, guiding them safely back toward the neighboring ranch. Cyrus watched, impressed at how calm and methodical she was. "It's amazing how quickly you can read these systems," he said. "I've had to learn fast," Mara replied. "Every challenge teaches you something new." By midday, the drones were safely on their way, and the team returned to the main ranch. Cyrus felt a quiet pride in Mara's abilities. She had handled the situation with skill and calm, turning a potential problem into a simple fix. The rest of the day passed in routine work, but the ranch seemed more connected than ever. Mara and Cyrus moved among the cattle, inspecting the feeders, repairing minor issues, and making small adjustments to the automated systems. Lena played nearby, her laughter ringing across the plains, a reminder of why this life was worth every challenge. That evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Cyrus and Mara stood on the porch, looking out across the fields. The sky was painted in shades of gold and purple, and the herd moved slowly in the distance, returning to their shelters. "You've changed things here," Cyrus said quietly. "Not just the ranch, but everything. The energy, the rhythm, it feels alive." Mara smiled. "I just try to help, and I learn from it too. The ranch, the animals, the land, it teaches you if you're willing to listen." Cyrus nodded, appreciating her insight. There was a depth to her understanding, a combination of instinct and intelligence that made her invaluable. The next morning brought another challenge, but this one was entirely unexpected. As Mara and Cyrus walked the perimeter of the northern fields, they noticed that several patches of grass were wilted, the soil cracked and dry despite recent rains. Cyrus frowned. "This doesn't make sense," he said. We irrigated everything after the storm. Mara knelt, examining the soil closely. The water supply is fine, but something is affecting the ground directly. Could be a blockage in the underground channels, or maybe something else. Cyrus looked at her intrigued. Something else, Mara nodded slowly. Sometimes nature adapts in ways you don't expect. Maybe the soil is reacting to the type of feed we're using, or maybe the drainage patterns shifted during the storm. We need to investigate. They spent the day tracing the underground irrigation channels, inspecting the soil, and adjusting the flow of water. Mara's keen eye and logical thinking guided their work, and by evening they had restored the patches of grass. The cattle would have plenty to eat, and the land was healthy once more. Cyrus felt a quiet satisfaction. Mara had shown him again that human skill and intuition were indispensable, even in a world filled with advanced technology. Machines could monitor and maintain, but they could not adapt, improvise, or understand the subtle patterns of life the way humans could. That night, they gathered in the main house for a simple meal. Mara prepared a stew using the ingredients available, and Lena set the table with care. Cyrus watched them both, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The ranch was no longer just a workplace. It was a home filled with warmth, laughter, and connection. "You make this place feel complete," he said softly after a pause. "Not just because of the work, but because of how you care." Mara looked at him, a gentle smile on her face. "We all care, Cyrus. That's what makes a place strong. Machines help, but people make it thrive." The next few days were filled with routine yet meaningful work. Mara continued to demonstrate her adaptability, repairing equipment, guiding the livestock, and teaching Lena about the ranch. Cyrus noticed subtle changes in himself as well. He was more patient, more willing to collaborate, and more open to learning from Mara. One afternoon, while checking the perimeter fences, they discovered another challenge. A section of fencing had been weakened during the storm and was in danger of collapsing. Mara quickly assessed the damage. "We can fix this with simple supports and reinforcement," she said. "It won't take long, but we need to act now before the cattle wander too far." Cyrus nodded, and together they worked to strengthen the fence. Mara's practical thinking and ability to organize the effort made the task quick and efficient. By the time the sun was low in the sky, the fence was secure and the herd was safely contained. Cyrus felt a deep sense of admiration. Mara's presence had transformed the ranch, not through dramatic gestures, but through consistent, thoughtful action. She had become the heart of the place, guiding it with intelligence, patience, and care. That evening they sat together outside the house, watching the stars appear in the clear night sky. Lena played nearby, her laughter mixing with the soft sounds of the wind and the distant movements of the herd. "You've taught me a lot," Cyrus said quietly. "About the land, about the animals, and about myself." Mara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We teach each other every day. That's what makes life rich." Cyrus nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The ranch, once orderly but lonely, was now alive with human energy, skill, and connection. Mara and Lena had brought something invaluable: hope, warmth, and the sense that life, even in the most challenging environments, could be full of joy and meaning. As the night deepened, Cyrus realized that the future of the ranch was no longer just about work and survival. It was about growth, learning, and the connections that made life truly worthwhile. Mara and Lena had arrived, and with them the ranch had become more than a place. It had become a home. The morning on Valera was calm, almost serene, with sunlight spilling over the wide plains and glinting off the automated feeders. Cyrus Duval stepped outside, taking a deep breath of the cool air. The ranch had grown quiet for the moment, the livestock grazing peacefully, the drones hovering lazily as if enjoying the morning as much as the humans below. He felt a sense of satisfaction and calm, the kind that comes from knowing things were well cared for. Mara Hayes was already in the main barn, checking on some supplies while Lena helped dust off a few tools. The little girl's energy was infectious, bouncing from one corner to another, asking questions, and mimicking the routines she had been learning. Cyrus smiled, watching them. It amazed him how quickly Mara and Lena had become part of the rhythm of the ranch. "You're early," Mara said, looking up as he entered. She smiled warmly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I like to see the land in the morning," Cyrus replied. "It helps me think." Mara nodded, understanding. There was a quiet importance in these early hours. the chance to observe, to notice details that might be missed in the rush of daily work. She appreciated it as much as he did. Today, however, there was work that needed more attention than usual. A section of the eastern field had been affected by uneven irrigation, leaving the soil drier than it should be. Cyrus had noticed it yesterday and knew that it needed careful attention before the next cycle of planting and grazing. Mara quickly assessed the situation. "We can fix this by adjusting the water channels and letting the soil rest before irrigating again. It will take time, but the results will be better than just forcing more water into it." Cyrus nodded, impressed as always by her insight. "Good, let's get started then." As they worked together, Mara and Cyrus moved among the cattle, checking the feeders, adjusting the channels, and guiding the livestock with quiet, thoughtful precision. Lena followed along, carrying small tools and helping where she could. The three of them worked in harmony, the ranch becoming more than just a place of labor. It was alive with cooperation, learning, and care. Hours passed in steady work, and by late morning, the irrigation problem was under control. The soil had been adjusted, water flow restored, and the cattle were comfortably grazing. Cyrus stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at Mara with a mixture of pride and admiration. "You've made this place run smoother than I could have imagined," he said softly. "I didn't realize just how much difference one person could make." Mara smiled, a little embarrassed. "We all contribute. I just happen to notice things quickly, but it's the team that makes it work. You, me, Lena, the ranch hands, everyone matters." Cyrus nodded, reflecting on her words. She was right. The ranch was not about machines or tools. It was about people and the human ability to adapt, to care, and to solve problems. Myra and Lena had brought a new heartbeat to the place, one that reminded him of the value of connection. As the afternoon approached, Cyrus decided to take a walk to the far pasture with Myra and Lena. The sun was high, and the plains stretched endlessly before them, golden and warm. The herd moved gracefully across the fields, and the gentle hum of the drones filled the air like a quiet chorus. "You really know this land?" Cyrus said, watching Mara guide Lena as they approached a small pond. "You understand it, the way it reacts, the way it breathes." Mara looked at him and smiled. "I've learned. Every day here teaches me something new. And I've had good teachers." She glanced at Lena, who was tossing small pebbles into the water, fascinated by the ripples. "Sometimes the land teaches more than people can." Cyrus chuckled softly. "I suppose you could say that. It's easy to forget how much the land shapes us." They reached the pond, sitting on the edge and letting Lena play in the shallow water. Cyrus felt a quiet peace, one that had been missing from his life for far too long. The ranch was thriving, the herd healthy, and the work of the day completed. But more than that, there was laughter, warmth, and a sense of family that made all the effort worthwhile. Myra leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. "I never imagined we'd have a place like this," she said softly. "A home, a safe place, and people who care." Cyrus nodded. "I never imagined it either, but I think maybe we've both found something we were missing." The sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. Cyrus stood, brushing off his pants, and looked at Mara and Lena. "It's almost time to get the herd settled for the night. Come on, let's finish up." Together, they guided the cattle back to the shelter, checking each feeder and ensuring the water was sufficient. Mara's careful attention to detail and quick thinking made the process smooth and efficient. Lena helped in her own small ways, carrying buckets and handing tools to her mother. Cyrus watched, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Once the herd was safely in place, the three of them walked back toward the main house. The sky was painted with brilliant shades of orange and purple, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of grass, soil, and the promise of another peaceful night. Inside the house, Mara prepared a simple dinner while Cyrus checked the systems on the drones and feeders. Lena helped set the table, her small hands careful and precise. The meal was modest but nourishing, and as they sat together, Cyrus realized how much life had changed since Mara and Lena arrived. "You've brought more than skill here," he said quietly. "You've brought warmth, energy, and hope. I didn't realize how much I needed that." Mara smiled, a soft warmth in her eyes. "We all need someone to rely on, to share life with. The ranch, the land, it's better when we're together." Lena looked up, her bright eyes shining. "I love it here. I don't want to leave." Myra ruffled her daughter's hair. "We're not going anywhere, sweetie. This is home." After dinner, the three of them stepped outside again, enjoying the quiet night. The stars were bright, scattered across the sky like tiny diamonds, and the gentle hum of the ranch's machines added a soothing rhythm to the scene. Cyrus felt a sense of calm he hadn't experienced in years. "You know," he said softly, "when I posted for a cook, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect someone like you to walk into my life." Mara looked at him, her smile gentle. "Life is full of surprises. Sometimes the things we think we want aren't what we need, and sometimes the unexpected turns out to be exactly right." Cyrus nodded, taking her words to heart. He realized that Mara and Lena had brought more than help with daily tasks. They had brought a new perspective, a renewed sense of purpose, and a family he hadn't dared to imagine he could have again. The next few days passed in a comfortable rhythm. Mara continued to manage the kitchen and supplies, guide Lena, and assist with the ranch work. Cyrus observed quietly, marveling at how seamlessly she had integrated herself into the life of the ranch. Her intelligence, resourcefulness, and warmth had become essential, not only to the functioning of the ranch, but to the emotional heartbeat of the place. One morning, Cyrus found himself reflecting on the journey they had taken together. From the first day Mara had arrived, lost and unsure, to now, where she moved through the ranch with confidence and ease, it was clear that life had changed. The ranch was no longer a lonely, orderly place. It was alive with human ingenuity, love, and care. He walked to the edge of the main pasture, watching Mara guide Lena as she helped feed the cattle. The little girl's laughter rang out across the plains, a melody that blended perfectly with the sounds of nature. Cyrus felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that this family, unconventional as it was, had become the center of his life. That evening, they sat together under the wide, open sky, the stars twinkling above like tiny promises. Mara leaned against him, Lena nestled between them, and for the first time in years, Cyrus felt completely at peace. The ranch was thriving, the family was whole, and life, in all its unexpected beauty, was unfolding exactly as it should. "I think we found something rare here," Cyrus said softly. "A place to belong, a reason to keep growing, and people who make it all worth it." Mara smiled, brushing a hand over Lena's hair. "We've all found that, and we'll keep building it every day." As the night deepened, the gentle sounds of the ranch surrounded them. The distant lowing of the cattle, the soft hum of the drones, the whisper of the wind through the plains. Cyrus felt a quiet joy settle over him, knowing that the future held not just work, but laughter, learning, and love. Life on Valera, once orderly but lonely, had transformed into something vibrant, full of hope, and entirely alive. Mara and Lena had not just entered Cyrus's world. They had changed it forever, bringing warmth, resilience, and the undeniable power of the human heart. And as he watched the stars twinkle above, Cyrus knew that the ranch, the land, and his small, unconventional family were all exactly where they belonged. Together they would face whatever challenges came next, not just with skill and courage, but with heart, connection, and the enduring strength of human spirit. The night was quiet, peaceful, and full of possibility. For Cyrus, Myra, and Lena, it was the beginning of a life that was more than work or survival. It was a life filled with love, laughter, and belonging. The ranch, alive and thriving, reflected the same truth that Cyrus had learned. The greatest strength of any place, any life, and any endeavor is the human heart, beating with care, courage, and connection. And that strength would guide them through every sunrise to come.